I'm a male, 31. My wife is a 29-year-old woman, and we have been married for nearly 3 years. 5 years ago, we met at a local restaurant. She was sitting in a booth behind me, and I could hear the jokes she was telling her friends. I thought she was very funny, and I believe I fell in love with her personality before I even saw her. That was the day I got her phone number, and things took off from there. Anyway, one thing I must mention about my wife is that she is an avid video gamer. I do too, but she's on a different level than I am, game pun intended. Her favorite game is Valorant, which she began playing about 2 years ago and has since become completely addicted to. To be honest, at times I get the impression that she is overly invested in the game. It's caused a few arguments between us, and there have been times when she's been able to disconnect, but most of the time, she seems obsessed with it. I know you'll say I should have seen that red flag from the start, but as a video gamer myself, I appreciated that she liked games and wasn't this bad before she got into Valorant. Yes, she spends several hours per session, but not every day of the week. That game seemed to be the one that completely captivated her. At one point, I enjoyed it, and we had a lot of fun playing together, especially at first. But with work and life and all of the other responsibilities that come with it, I had to eventually leave her to play on her own. Quite naturally, she eventually made some online friends to play with, which is the main reason I'm here. So, one of her online friends, let's call him Caleb, appears to be the one she's closest to. I'd say she plays Valorant around 90% of the time, and she uses it with Caleb. When she needs to go through a session without him, she's always in a bad mood, which can be annoying at times. However, I can't deny that playing the game is also a social experience for her, and doing it without the right person makes it less enjoyable. My misunderstanding does not exempt it from causing me concern. I've walked by the room and heard her and Caleb giggling incessantly. Perhaps I'm insecure, but I don't like how it makes me feel. It certainly causes me concern. It appears that this online friend of hers is an overly important male figure in her life. I've always been wary of the male best friend thing, having been burned before. So, one day I decided to be mature and discuss it with her. I sat her down and asked if she had a crush on Caleb. She appeared appalled by the concept, but claimed to understand. She then spent about 30 minutes explaining the relationship and trying to make me feel better. When that happened, I was grateful because it was difficult to express the level of concern I had begun to feel, and I trusted her right away. That lasted for several months, up until recently. I don't intend to eavesdrop, but with her headphones on, I believe my wife is sometimes unaware of how loud she speaks. I heard her scream happily and then she asked, "When will you be in town?" It didn't take much brain power to figure out what she meant. Caleb is on his way to town, and I can't put into words how I felt at the time. I believe there was a lot of panic. That was probably the dominant emotion. I always felt safe with this guy on the other end of the country, but the fact that he was visiting our city posed a problem. It was too close for my comfort. Here's the problem she hasn't told me, and I haven't confronted her yet. I don't want to make the wrong move because my first instinct is to prevent her from seeing him. So, if he wants to come just for her, he can save himself the trip. I believe that might be too forceful a move, which is why I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. That is what I've come to seek assistance for. So, I just let it happen and hope she is a good girl. Should I follow them around town? Or should I simply say no and hope she listens? I hate how paranoid this is making me, so I'm open to any advice. If you've been in a similar situation, I'd love to hear how you handled it. I'll read all of the comments and hope to respond to as many as possible. Thank you for reading. Edit. Many people say I should have stood my ground when I spoke with you about Caleb. But knowing that more men than women play online shooters, whether I got to talk to Caleb or not, there'd be an Andrew or a Richard next. I decided to take their word for it, and as things stand, neither of us can truly claim that there is anything more than friendship. I don't blame her for wanting to meet a long-time online friend at some point. I'm pretty sure he knows she's married to someone else, and that puts a stop to anything. You can also edit this. I've decided to talk to her and tell her that I don't want her to go meet him. I will not forbid her, but I will make it perfectly clear how I feel. I'm hoping that if Caleb makes a move on her, she'll be acutely aware of how wrong anything she might do is. That is all I can hope for. She can respect my feelings by not exercising her right to freedom. I'll let you know how it goes. Well, I talked to her about it, and she eventually came forward a day later, telling me that Caleb would be visiting our city in about 2 weeks. That was nice of me to respond to her, and there was a brief awkward silence before she added, "We're going to meet up." I didn't say anything right away because I was trying to come up with the best response, but she added before I could, "We've been friends for over 2 years, so it'll be nice to see him." It was nice when I finally said, "I'd rather you didn't." She appeared shocked. I told her that I was uncomfortable with the relationship, especially since I had no idea what his intentions were. I inquired whether there was another reason he was coming around, or if it was just for her, and there was a pause before she spoke. He probably has other things to do here. They made it clear that she was confident that she was not the only reason he was coming around. I reiterated that I had no idea what his intentions were with her, and she said, "We're just friends, and he knows I have a husband." In my head, I knew that wouldn't deter anyone who truly wanted to do something with her, but I was tired of the conversation. I have just told her, "I am politely asking you not to go because I am not comfortable with it." She flared up at me and said, "And I politely declined. I'll go regardless of what you say." That concluded our conversation, and now I'm waiting for her friend to arrive in town. When that time comes, I'll let you know. First and foremost, congratulations for recognizing the modern aspect of cheating. Who knew getting wrecked in Valorant could take on a whole new meaning? Yikes. Your wife's enthusiasm for the game may be genuine, but when she's giggling like a child on a sugar high and discussing Caleb's visit, it's natural to wonder if he's planning a surprise raid on your marriage, which he probably is. So, what about this real plan? Offer to join your wife and Caleb for a game night. Nothing says, "I'm okay with this friendship," like being the third wheel in a virtual shootout. Make sure you are not being played in real life. Therapy update 1. It's me again, the man who came up with the story about his wife who was big on playing Valorant, and then felt a certain way about her very close relationship with an online friend named Caleb. The big issue came when she insisted on meeting up with him when he came to our city, which made me very uncomfortable. I tried to stop it because the whole situation made me uncomfortable, but she insisted on seeing him regardless of what I thought or said. Well, I let go and let her do whatever she wanted. When the day arrived, the mood in the house was clearly tense. And when it was time to leave, she simply said, "I'm off," before leaving the house. I was extremely irritated, but I decided to remain as calm as possible. I tried to figure out what I could do to spy on her and find out what her day would be like, but I realized I just needed to wait until she returned. And when she returned several hours later, I believe she had been out for approximately 7 hours, I saw her open the door, happy, but as soon as she saw me, her face dropped, and she was clearly irritated. I tried to be receptive, asking how her day with Caleb went. She said everything was fine and went to her room to take a shower. That definitely made me suspicious. Perhaps it's a trope that people who have cheated go straight to the shower. I felt compelled to check her phone while she was in the shower, but I snuck around and looked for it everywhere. It appears she brought it with her into the bathroom, which seemed strange as I was sure she almost never did that. It's as if she was trying to cover her tracks while in the restroom. I tried to restart the conversation to learn more about her day, but she was unresponsive to everything I said. The mood was still off, and I was in no mood to argue that night, so I just went to bed. For the day, she eventually went to bed and stayed up all night texting. I wasn't asleep yet, but she assumed I was. She eventually fell asleep, and when I heard her snoring, I decided to do what I had been waiting for. Given how aware I believed she was of her phone, I knew I wouldn't have been able to sleep after her, and even if I had, her phone would have been under her pillow or somewhere else it would be difficult for me to snoop through. She let down our guard though, and I was able to get out of bed and grab her phone. I wouldn't have tried this if I hadn't known she was a heavy sleeper. I was so confident that I didn't even need to leave the bedroom to check her phone. I was able to accomplish everything I needed to do from my bed, and believe me, I found everything I was afraid to find. I went straight to court first because that's where she probably had the most conversations with Caleb, and it was right on point. That's when I noticed a very recent set of messages from that night after she had returned home. It began with her saying she had a great time, to which he responded similarly but added, "A very, very good time." She responded with a winking emoji and laughing emojis, and then he said, "As you can by sitting more frequently." She added more laughing emojis and said, "It might not happen again." There's certainly good. I think the fact that you are married makes it even more difficult for me. I won't deny that knowing he tried to forbid me from seeing you made me feel rebellious. It just made everything more seductive because it was so obviously forbidden. Yes, I know. Which is why I'm confident that this will happen again. All you have to do is bring me to your town a lot more. I definitely have a reason to now. She then sent more laughing emojis. We will talk in the morning, she said. One final thing, I took this in the shower for you, she continued, followed by, then there's the nude, and that was it. I was furious. I was so irritated that you couldn't even concentrate on what I had planned to do on her phone next. I sat there for about 5 minutes, phone in hand, having gone blank with anger. But I eventually snapped out of it and went straight to her Google Maps. I checked the timeline and discovered that she went directly from our house to a hotel, where she spent the entire day. She did nothing else with him. I knew she would survive. I grilled her, and I documented it. I tried to just glance at her previous Discord conversation, but it was a lot of Valorant talk, and I felt like I was working with limited time. I quickly documented that night's conversation, knowing there was more I could look at on her phone, but I felt like I had seen far more than I wanted to. I was very angry at the time. I hung up the phone and went about my business. That was all for the night. I was unable to sleep the entire time. I wanted to take my time and ask everyone how you thought I should proceed, but my anger got the best of me. In the morning, as soon as she awoke, I lifted her up into bed so she sat up. She appeared shocked. I told her right there that I knew she had slept with Caleb, and that if she made the stupid decision to lie to me, I'd slap her right there. She appeared terrified, and that expression pleased me more than I'd like to admit. It is what it is, however. She admitted to doing it, but there was no crying or pleading because she knew it would only make me angry, especially since I had already expressed my suspicions. So, I told you I didn't want you to see him because I was afraid of his intentions. You decided to disregard my concerns and went to meet him at his hotel. I slept with him, you mentioned, adding that you liked it even more because you were defying me. You even sent him a nude photo. You understand that there is nothing else for us to do but divorce, don't you? She looked defeated because she couldn't gaslight me or lie to me at that point. It was obvious I had seen her phone, and she realized it would be foolish to try to change the script despite the circumstances. I was actually very pleased with how well everything had turned out in my favor, forbidding her from going and doing exactly what I was afraid she would do. After that, I was completely toothless throughout the entire thing. I told her that she needed to leave immediately. I gave her 10 minutes to pack her belongings because I did not want her to return to the house for any reason in the near future. I told her that I'd go get the divorce papers for her, and that it was in her best interests not to make the process too long and drawn out. The sooner we finish this, the sooner you will be with Caleb, since it was worth it, your marriage. She remained silent throughout the entire situation. As of now, I've sent the divorce papers to her, and I'm just waiting for her signature, which should be within the next week. I want to be done with this honestly. I'll provide an update if one is available. It's a difficult situation, and you've certainly handled it with a combination of sleuthing and stoicism. If there is any silver lining in this situation, it is that you now have clarity, even if there is a significant emotional cost to moving forward. It appears that you have already decided to cut ties and move on. The process may be painful, but it appears that you are taking the necessary precautions to protect your sanity and well-being. I hope the next chapter of your life brings you more positive experiences and less drama. Who knows? You might find yourself in a new game with a far better outcome. Update 2. So, if you remember me and the guy who came here with the story about his wife who loved playing Valorant and had an online friend named Caleb, whom I forbade her from seeing when she came into town, she did anyway. And once she did, they slept together. Yep, that is me. Thankfully, I'm here to provide the final update to this entire story. I would never have imagined this was how our relationship would end, and I am glad it did. I eventually had the divorce papers signed and returned within a week of sending them to her, and I sent them to my divorce lawyer the next day so that we could begin the process right away. When the divorce proceedings began, she was as obstinate as she could be. She had rolled over when I accused her, and even when it came to getting through the preliminary divorce proceedings. But now she's chosen to frustrate me. I knew that when I got out of this, I would make sure to get back at her good. I was prepared to use divorce as my only form of vengeance, but now I had more in mind. It took a lot longer than I expected, but we eventually got through the divorce process, and it was mostly in my favor. We hadn't been married long, and she had decided to cheat on me with someone I had clearly expressed concerns about, with no remorse. At the end of it all, her pressuring me to the point where we had to appear before a judge didn't help matters. In his eyes, he was the real deal because I got the cleanest break imaginable. There is no alimony. I got the house and our shared car, and I was able to laugh in her face once everything was settled. You know how companies say you shouldn't share confidential information with anyone, including your partner. However, most people continue to do so because they believe their partners will keep that information safe. Well, I believe we had chat logs. I'd like you to tell me about some major developments in her company, such as big news. Based on this information, she made some undisclosed stock purchases. I didn't have evidence of the latter, but I knew her company could conduct their own investigations. So, I shared everything concrete I had with them. Their valued employee was not being discreet, and she was also an insider trader. As expected, her job did not survive the incident. I found out when she called and screamed that I had ruined her life. She called me every name in the book, and surprisingly, I felt no guilt or pain. I was thoroughly entertained by the entire thing. In fact, it felt good, and I was glad to have received something back. The best part is that I know, with this type of behavior on her record, her next job will not be easy to come by. All of this, after not having to pay alimony, regardless of how badly our marriage ended. I finally got sweet revenge, and it kind of made up for the pain she caused me. I'm relieved everything is over, and I hope I never have to worry about her again. You transformed a painful chapter into a powerful play. From the sounds of it, you're wrapping up the book with a sense of accomplishment, getting the house and car but no alimony. Talk about hitting a trifecta. Cheers to moving forward and enjoying your well-deserved peace. Here's the next story. I adjusted the silverware on the dining table one last time to ensure that everything was perfectly aligned. The aroma of rosemary roasted chicken filled the air, mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread. I smiled to myself, picturing Anna's reaction as she walked through the door. Tonight was special, a celebration that my hard work had finally paid off. The clock on the wall ticked away each minute, becoming longer than the previous. I poured myself a glass of wine and sipped slowly while I waited. Anna was late, which was not unusual. Her marketing job frequently required her to work long hours. The sound of keys jingling outside the front door woke me up. I straightened my tie and smoothed down my shirt, excited to share my good news. Anna, I called out as the door swung open. She stumbled in, her usual pristine attire slightly disheveled. Her blouse was wrinkled, and her hair looked like she had run her fingers through it several times. John, she expressed surprise, what exactly is going on here? I approached her, arms open for an embrace, but she slid past me, dropping her bag on the floor. I have some excellent news, I replied, following her into the living room. I received the promotion to senior architect at the firm. I wanted to surprise you with a special dinner to celebrate. Anna turned to face me, her gaze darting across the room. Oh, that's wonderful, John. Congratulations. Her words lacked the enthusiasm I had anticipated. I frowned and studied her closely. Something seemed off. Her cheeks were flushed, and there was a faint sheen of sweat on her brow as she moved to remove her jacket. I noticed something on her neck that chilled my blood. Anna, I spoke in a low, controlled tone. What's on your neck? Her hand flew up to cover the area. Unfortunately, it was too late. I had seen the telltale marks, love bites, fresh and unmistakable. It's nothing, she replied quickly, just an allergic reaction to a new necklace I tried on during lunch. I moved closer, my jaw clenched. Do not lie to me. Those are hickeys. Anna's expression hardened, her initial nervousness replaced with defiance. Oh, grow up, John. Not everything revolves around you and your paranoid suspicions. Paranoid, I repeated, my anger rising. You arrive home looking as if you've been mauled, and I am paranoid for noticing? She rolled her eyes and moved past to the stairs. I do not have time for this. I'm tired and need to shower. I grabbed her arm and stopped her. We're not done discussing this, Anna. She yanked her arm free and glared at me. Yes, we are. And you know what? Congratulations on your stupid promotion. I'm confident you'll enjoy spending even more time at the office, ignoring me. With that, she stormed upstairs, leaving me standing. My carefully prepared dinner is getting cold on the table. I stood there for a long time, my thoughts racing. Her late nights were helping to bring the pieces together, her distracted demeanor, sudden defensiveness, rather than the crushing sadness I had anticipated. My wife was cheating on me. I felt a cold fury rise within me. If Anna thought she could make a fool of me, she was very mistaken. I was going to find out exactly what was happening, and if I did, there'd be hell to pay. I went to the kitchen, grabbed the bottle of wine, and poured it down the sink. Then, methodically, I started clearing away the dinner I'd prepared while working. I started making a plan. Anna had no idea what she had set in motion for the following week. I played the oblivious husband. I left for work at my usual time and kissed Anna goodbye as if nothing had happened. But instead of going to the office, I parked a block away and waited. It didn't take long before my suspicions were confirmed. Every day, Anna left the house 1 hour after I did. She dressed provocatively compared to her usual work attire. I followed her at a discreet distance. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. On the 5th day, I struck pay dirt. Instead of heading to her office, Anna drove to the Grand Meridian Hotel in downtown. I watched her walk confidently through the lobby, not even checking to see if anyone was watching her. I parked my car, my heart pounding with a mix of rage and excitement. In the elevator, I saw her press the 14th floor button. I waited a few minutes before picking up the next one. The hallway on the 14th floor was quiet. The plush carpet muffled my footsteps. I moved slowly, listening for any sounds that could indicate which room Anna had entered. Then I overheard it. A man's deep laugh followed by Anna's distinct giggle. I approached the door to room 1412 and pressed my ear against it. Their voices were muffled, but I could hear enough to understand what was going on. My wife was inside with another man, betraying everything we had built together. I pulled out my phone and launched the camera app. Then, I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. "Room service," I called out, concealing my voice. There was a sudden scramble within the room. I could hear Anna's panicked whisper, "I thought you said you hadn't ordered anything." The door opened a crack, and I pushed my foot through, pushing it wide open. Anna stood there, wrapped in a hotel bathrobe, her expression one of shock and horror. "John," she gasped, "what are you doing here?" I ignored her, scanning the room until my gaze fell on the man scrambling to put on his pants. He was tall, with slicked back hair and an expensive watch gleaming on his wrist, the type of smug, self-assured jerk I had always despised. "This is what working late looks like," I said, my voice eerily calm as I held up my phone to record everything. The man, whom I assumed was David from Anna's texts, finally managed to put on his pants and stand up straight, attempting to appear imposing. "Look, buddy," he said with a condescending tone, "I think you should leave before things get ugly." I laughed, a harsh and bitter sound. "Oh, it's already ugly, and it's about to get a lot worse." Anna lunged for my phone, but I easily stepped around her. "John, please," she begged. "We can discuss this." "Save it," I snapped. "I have all the evidence I need right here." David stepped towards me, his fist clenched. "You should delete that video if you know what's best for you." I met his gaze unflinchingly. "Or what? Add salt to adultery? Go ahead. Give me another reason to ruin both of you." Anna began crying, large, theatrical sobs that may have moved me once. They've just fueled my determination. "I am leaving," I said, backing up to the door. "But it's not over. Definitely not." As I walked out, I heard David comfort Anna, telling her not to worry and that they'd figure it out. Little did they know, I was already several steps ahead of them. Back in my car, I watched the video I had taken. Anna was damned in her bathrobe, David, half-dressed. The rumpled bed was clearly visible in the background, more than enough evidence for what I had planned. I drove straight to a copy shop and had several prints made of the most incriminating stills from the video. Then, I went home, logged on to Anna's computer. She'd never bothered to change her password, and found her work email without hesitation. I composed a new message, attaching the photos in the video. I addressed it to her boss, her entire team, and for good measure, KT, her parents, and siblings. The subject line read, "The real reason for those late nights." My finger hovered over the send button for just a moment. Was I actually going to do this? Destroy my wife's career and reputation in one fell swoop? The image of her in that hotel room, laughing with her lover, flashed through my mind. Any doubt I had vanished. I clicked send, then poured myself a drink and waited for the storm to hit. The front door slammed open with such force that the pictures on the wall rattled. She stormed in, her face a mask of fury and panic. "What did you do?" she screamed, hurling her bag at me. I dodged it easily, maintaining my position on the couch, drink in hand. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said calmly, taking a sip of my whiskey. Her phone buzzed incessantly in her hand. She glanced at it, her face paling even further. "My boss, my parents, John. How could you?" I stood up slowly, placing my glass on the coffee table. "How could I? That's impressive, coming from you. How could you throw away our marriage for some sleazy affair?" She advanced on me, her finger jabbing at my chest. "You had no rights. You have ruined everything." I caught her wrist, holding it firmly but not enough to hurt. "No, Anna. You ruined everything the moment you decided to cheat." She wrenched her hand away, tears streaming down her face. But I knew better than to fall for her act now. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice cold and final. Anna's expression changed. Her tears drying up instantly, she laughed, a harsh and bitter sound. "A divorce? You think it's going to be that easy? I'll take you for everything you've got, John. By the time I'm done with you, you'll be living in a cardboard box." I smiled, a predatory grin that made her take a step back. "I do not think so, Anna. You see, I have all the evidence to prove your infidelity. That will not go over well with the judge." Her phone vibrated again, and she looked at it, her face contorted with rage. "David advises you to keep an eye on your back. He knows people, John, important people. He has the potential to ruin your life." I laughed, truly amused by the threat. "Tell David I am looking forward to it. In fact, why don't you call him now? Put him on speaker. I'd like to speak with the man who has been screwing my wife." Her hands shook as she dialed, her gaze never leaving mine. David's voice came through as the speaker, and it was tight with barely controlled anger. "You little brat," he growled. "You have no idea who you are dealing with. I can ruin your career with a single phone call." I leaned closer to the phone, my voice low and threatening. "Listen closely, David. I do not care who you are or who you know. You picked the wrong man to cuckold. I am going to dismantle your life, piece by piece. There's nothing you can do about it." There was a stunned silence on the other end. Then David's voice returned, less certain now. "You're not telling the truth. You have nothing on me." I chuckled. "Want to make a bet? I recommend that you start getting your affairs in order, David. The storm is approaching, and you are not going to handle it well." I reached out and abruptly ended the call, leaving Anna stunned and terrified. "John," she said, her voice small now, "please, can't we discuss this? We can work things out. I will do anything." I looked at her, and I looked at her, and felt nothing but contempt. This woman, whom I loved and trusted and had built a life with, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. And now she believed she could manipulate me with tears and promises. "It's too late for that, Anna," I said, moving past her to the stairs. "I need you out of this house by tomorrow. Take anything you need for a few days. My lawyer will contact me regarding the remaining issues." I climbed the stairs, and I heard her collapse onto the couch, sobbing. Once, the sound would have broken my heart. Now, it has only strengthened my resolve. In our bedroom, my bedroom now, I started packing up Anna's belongings as I worked. I felt a sense of lightness and freedom. The anger was still present, burning hot and bright. However, it had become more focused. I had a purpose, a mission. David, and anyone else who had laughed behind my back or encouraged their affair, they were all going to pay. And I was going to enjoy every minute of it. I zipped up Anna's last suitcase and carried it downstairs. "I'm dropping them off at the front door," I said. Anna looked up. Her makeup had streaked down her face. John, please, she whispered. Do not do this. I opened the front door and motioned outside. Goodbye, Anna. I hope he was worth it. I felt no remorse as she shuffled past me, dragging her suitcases. No second thoughts. This was only the beginning. The real war was about to begin, and I was fully prepared for it. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, smiling for the first time in days. Let them come, I thought. I was prepared for anything they could throw at me, and in the end, they would regret ever crossing John Miller. I awoke feeling refreshed. The morning after Anna had left, the house was quiet and peaceful. No more walking on eggshells, no more pretending. I savored my coffee while scrolling through my phone to see the aftermath of yesterday's revelations. My satisfaction lasted only a short time, though. I received a text message from my colleague, Mike. What the hell is going on? HR wants to see you soon. I frowned, quickly dressing and heading to the office. As I passed through the lobby, I noticed the receptionist averting her gaze. In the elevator, conversation ceased as soon as I entered. When I arrived on my floor, my boss, Sarah, was waiting for me. Her expression was grim. John, we need to talk, she said, leading me into her office. I sat down, keeping a calm demeanor. What is this about, Sarah? She sighed and pushed the folder across her desk. We have received some concerning allegations about your behavior. I opened the folder, my jaw tightening as I read. According to these statements, I was an abusive, controlling husband who had made Anna's life miserable for years. This is complete nonsense. I spoke in a low, controlled tone. Anna is lying. Sarah leaned forward, her voice softening. John, I've known you for years. I want to believe you. However, these allegations are serious. We have to conduct an investigation. I stood up, my mind racing. Fine, investigate. You will see it's all lies. My phone broke as I was leaving Sarah's office. An unknown number called. I responded cautiously. Mr. Miller, an armed voice said, this is Officer Ramirez of the police department. We need you to come to the station. My stomach dropped. What is this about? Your wife has filed a restraining order against you. We need to serve you the papers and obtain your statement. I ended the call by leaning against the wall for support. Anna was playing dirty, but I wouldn't let her win. At the police station, I sat across from Officer Ramirez, a stocky man with a permanent frown. Mr. Miller, your wife claims you have been stalking her and making threatening calls, and she is concerned for her safety. How would you respond? I leaned forward to meet his gaze. Officer, my wife's having an affair. I caught her red-handed, and now she's attempting to deflect blame. I haven't contacted her since she left our home yesterday. Ramirez raised his eyebrow. Do you have any proof of this affair? I nodded. Check her work email. I sent evidence there yesterday. As Ramirez left to back up my claim, my lawyer, Rebecca, rushed in. John, I arrived as soon as I heard. Don't say another word unless I'm present. Rebecca and I spent the next hour navigating the minefield of Anna's accusations. By the end, even Ramirez appeared skeptical of Anna's claims. He stated that he would investigate further. For the time being, however, the restraining order remains in effect. Stay away from your wife's workplace, he warned. We left the station. Rebecca turned to face me. John, Anna is playing hardball. We need to be ready for more. I nodded and smiled grimly. Oh, I'm prepared. Anna has no idea what is coming. Little did I know, Anna's schemes were only the beginning of my problems. The following few weeks were a blur of damage control while Rebecca worked to counter Anna's legal maneuvers. I threw myself into my work, determined not to let her unfounded accusations harm my career. But it appeared that the universe, or rather David, had other plans. I received a call one morning from a major client, Mr. Yamamoto. Mr. Miller, he said, his voice called, I am calling to inform you that we are terminating our contract. I sat up straight, alarm bells ringing. Mr. Yamamoto, may I ask why? We have been nothing but diligent in our work for you. There was a pause. Let's just say that we've received some concerning information about your personal behavior. We cannot risk harming our reputation by associating with someone of questionable character. The call terminated before I could respond. I slammed my fist on the desk, knowing who was behind it. Over the next few days, the pattern repeated. Clients pulled out, citing vague concerns about my reputation. Projects I'd worked on for months vanished overnight. I was in my office, trying to salvage whatever I could, when my phone rang. David's number flashed across the screen. Against my better judgment, I responded. "Are you enjoying your little professional crisis?" David's smug tone came through. I gritted my teeth. "So, is this your game, David? Attempting to ruin my career?" He chuckled. "Oh, this is only the beginning, you see, John. I have friends in high places. One word from me, and the doors close. By the end of this, you'll be able to design dog houses." "You're making a major mistake, David." I let out a growl. "I'm not a pushover who can be bullied into submission. Face it, John, you are out of your league. Why don't you simply crawl back to Anna, beg for forgiveness, and we'll all forget what happened?" I laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "You obviously don't know me at all, David. I do not beg, and I do not forget. Do you want to play dirty? Fine. But remember, you started the war. I am just going to finish it." I hung up, my thoughts already devising a strategy. David believed he had the upper hand, but he had made a fatal mistake. He had underestimated me. I called Rebecca. "I need you to find out everything you can about David's business practices, every shady deal, every under-the-table payment, every ethical breach. Leave no stone unturned." Rebecca's voice was cautious. "John, pursuing someone like David could be dangerous." "Rebecca, David wants to play hardball. Let's show him how it's done." For the next week, I worked nonstop, requesting favors, contacting old contacts. David's business empire gradually came into focus, and it was not pretty. Insider trading, embezzlement, and bribery of city officials. David's success was based on corruption and deception. Armed with this information, I contacted Sarah Collins, an investigative journalist with whom I had previously collaborated on a project. "Sarah, I have a story for you. How would you like to expose one of the biggest business frauds?" Sarah's attention was immediately piqued. "I am listening, John. What do you have?" I laid out everything we had discovered about David. Sarah's excitement increased with each revelation. "This is explosive stuff, John. If we can confirm all of this, it will be the biggest story of the year." I smiled as I felt the tide turn. "Oh, we can verify that. And I want you to publish the story as soon as possible." As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of grim satisfaction. David believed he could crush me with his connections and influence, but he was about to discover that armed with the truth, the pen was indeed more powerful than the sword. The following morning, David's image was plastered across every major news outlet. "Business magnate implicated in massive fraud scandal," the headline screamed. My phone vibrated with a text from David. "You've died, Miller. Do you hear me? Dead." I chuckled and typed a response. "Take care, David. Threats like that could damage your already tarnished public image. But please continue digging that hole. It's entertaining to watch David's empire crumble under the pressure of investigations and public outrage." I shifted my focus to gathering more allies. It was time to find out who else had been wronged by David, to raise an army against him. The war wasn't over, but for the first time since the beginning, I felt the momentum shift in my favor. David and Anna had no idea what was on their way as David's world collapsed around him. I knew it was time to deliver the final blow. My investigation had revealed one crucial detail. David was married, and Clara was blissfully unaware of his infidelity. I planned to meet Clara at a quiet cafe across town. While I waited, I planned out what I was going to say, knowing that this conversation could be the key to completely destroying David. Clara arrived, a tall, elegant woman wearing a worried expression. "Hello, Mr. Miller. My name is Clara Thompson. You mentioned that you had some important information about my husband." I stood and extended my hand. "Mrs. Thompson, thank you for meeting with me. Please sit down. What I have to say is not easy to hear." As we sat, I pulled out a folder containing photos of David and Anna together, as well as financial records detailing David's misdeeds. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your husband has been having an affair with my wife, Anna." Clara's face turned pale as she looked at the photos. Her hands trembled as she pushed them aside. "No, there must be an error. David wouldn't." I leaned forward, my voice soft yet firm. I'm afraid it is true, and there is more. These documents reveal that David has engaged in some highly unethical business practices. The recent news stories represent only the tip of the iceberg. Clara's shock turned to rage as she pored over the documents. That bastard, she hissed. All these years, I stood by him and defended him against every rumor. So this is how he pays me. I nodded sympathetically. I understand exactly how you feel, Clara. My wife also betrayed me, but we do not have to be victims. We can fight back. Clara looked up with a steely glint in her eyes. What did you have in mind? I smiled, recognizing an ally. As it happens, a charity gala is scheduled for next week. All of Boston's elite will be present, including David. I thought it might be the ideal location for a public reckoning. Clara smiled slowly and vengefully. Mr. Miller, I believe this could be the start of a wonderful partnership. Clara and I will make meticulous plans over the next week. We arranged for her to host the gala, ensuring David's attendance. Meanwhile, I gathered more evidence to prepare for the final confrontation. The night of the gala, I straightened my tie and took a deep breath before entering the opulent ballroom. The city's most influential people mingled, sipping champagne and making small talk. I spotted David across the room, looking haggard but trying to maintain his usual charm. Our eyes met, and his face darkened with rage. Before he could approach me, Clara took the stage, tapping a glass for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming tonight. Before we begin the auction, I have a special presentation I'd like to share. The lights dimmed, and a projector screen lowered. David's face drained of color as images began to flash across the screen, photos of him and Anna, documents detailing his fraudulent activities, bank statements showing massive transfers to offshore accounts. Clara's voice, cold and controlled, narrated each damning piece of evidence. My husband, David Thompson, has not only betrayed our marriage but has also betrayed the trust of every person in this room. His business empire is built on lies, fraud, and corruption. The room erupted in shocked whispers. I watched with grim satisfaction as David's colleagues and friends backed away from him, their faces a mix of disgust and betrayal. David lunged for the stage. Clara, stop this now. You don't know what you're doing. I stepped into his path, my voice low. It is over, David. Your house of cards is falling, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. He swung at me, his fist connecting with my jaw. I staggered back but didn't fall. Security guards rushed in, restraining David as he shouted incoherently. As David was led away, I caught sight of Anna standing in the corner, her face a mask of horror. Our eyes met, and I saw the realization dawn on her. She had backed the wrong horse, and now she would go down with him. Clara approached me, handing me a glass of champagne. Thank you, John. I couldn't have done this without you. I raised my glass, to justice, Clara, and to new beginnings. As we clinked glasses, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The battle wasn't over yet, but tonight had been a decisive victory. David and Anna's world was crumbling, and from the ashes, I would rise stronger than ever. The aftermath of the charity gala was a whirlwind of chaos and retribution. David's empire crumbled overnight. His reputation was in tatters. Anna, caught in the crossfire, found herself ostracized by the very social circles she once dominated. I sat in Rebecca's office, reviewing our strategy for the upcoming divorce proceedings. The mountain of evidence we had gathered against Anna and David loomed before us. John, with everything we've uncovered, I'm confident we can push for a favorable settlement, Rebecca said, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. I leaned back in my chair, a grim smile playing on my lips. Favorable isn't enough, Rebecca. I want to leave Anna with nothing. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. That's a tall order, John. Even with the affair, courts usually aim for equitable distribution. I leaned forward, my voice low and determined. Then we'll make it about more than just the affair. We'll show the court how Anna tried to destroy my reputation, how she filed false police reports. I want her exposed for the manipulative liar she is. Rebecca nodded slowly. It's aggressive, but with the evidence we have, it just might work. I met her gaze, unflinching. Anna made her choice when she betrayed me. Now she'll face the consequences. The day of the court hearing arrived. As I walked into the courtroom, I caught sight of Anna. She appeared pale and drawn, a far cry from the confident woman who had once threatened to take everything from me. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of fear in hers. Good. She should be afraid. The judge called the court to order, and our lawyers began their opening statements. Rebecca painted a vivid picture of Anna's infidelity and subsequent attempts to ruin my life. When it was Anna's lawyer's turn, he tried to spin a tale of emotional neglect and misunderstandings. I had to stifle a laugh at the sheer audacity of their lies. As the proceedings continued, Rebecca called witness after witness, each testimony more damning than the last. Colleagues spoke of Anna's erratic behavior, friends recounted her brazen lies, and even her own family members reluctantly admitted to her manipulative nature. When it was Anna's turn to testify, she tried to maintain her victim act. Your Honor, John was cold and distant. I felt neglected, unloved. David showed me the affection I was missing at home. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to stand up and call out her lies. Rebecca caught my eye, silently urging me to stay calm. During cross-examination, Rebecca was relentless. Mrs. Miller, can you explain these text messages where you boast about, and I quote, playing John for a fool? Her face paled. I don't recall those messages. Rebecca pressed on. And what about the false police report filed? The one where you claimed Mr. Miller was stalking you when, in fact, you were the one harassing him at his workplace? Anna's composure cracked. You do not understand. He was ruining everything. I had to do something. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge called for order, but the damage was done. Anna's outburst had revealed her true nature. As the final arguments were made, I felt a sense of grim satisfaction. Anna's lies were unraveling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The judge's ruling came swiftly and decisively in light of the evidence presented. The court finds in favor of Mr. Miller. Mrs. Miller's claims are dismissed, and Mr. Miller has been granted the majority of the marital assets. I exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. It was over. I had won. As we left the courtroom, Anna tried to approach me. John, please, we can still work this out. I apologize for everything. I turned to her, my voice cold. Save it, Anna. You're sorry you got caught, nothing more. Enjoy the life you've made for yourself. With that, I walked away, leaving Anna standing alone in the corridor, the ruins of her life crumbling around her. Weeks passed, and I threw myself into rebuilding my life and career. The scandal had initially rocked my professional world, but as the truth came to light, clients began to return and new opportunities emerged. One evening, as I was working late at the office, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. John, and his voice came through, sounding small and desperate. Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you. I sighed and pinched the bridge of my nose. What do you want, Anna? I'm in trouble, John. I've lost everything, my job, my friends. I do not know what to do. That's not my problem, Anna. But John, I've changed. I realize now how wrong I was. I laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. You must be more desperate than I thought. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Anna spoke again, her voice had hardened. Fine, if that's how you want to play it. But remember, John, I'm not the only one with secrets. You might have won the battle, but this war isn't over. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, a feeling of unease settling in my stomach. What was Anna planning? I immediately called Rebecca. Anna has just called me. She issued some vague threats. I believe she may be up to something. Rebecca's voice was calm but concerned. Do you think she would try anything? I would not put it past her. She has lost everything. When faced with a difficult situation, people will resort to desperate measures. Okay, Rebecca, she said. I'll assign my investigator to it. In the meantime, take care, John. Keep track of any additional communication from Anna. One night, I got a text from an unknown number. Meet me at the old warehouse on 5th Street. Come alone. Or with your dirty little secrets go public. Do you know which ones? I stared at the message. My mind raced. What secrets could Anna possibly believe she had on me? It had to be a bluff, but could I ignore it? Despite my better judgment, I decided to go, but I wasn't going into a potentially dangerous situation unprepared. I called my friend Mark, an ex-cop I had previously worked with. Mark, I need a favor. I'm meeting someone who may be trouble. I need you to be my backup. Mark agreed without hesitation. We made a plan. He'd remain out of sight, but close enough to intervene if things went wrong. As I approached the warehouse, my senses were on high alert. The area was deserted, the only sound the distant sound of traffic. I pushed open the rusty door, wincing at the loud creak it produced. I'm here. What is this about? I called out. A figure emerged from the shadows, but it was not Anna. It was David. Hello, John. He spoke with a sinister smile on his lips, surprised to see me. I tensed, braced for a fight. What's happening, David? Where is Anna? David chuckled, and the sound echoed throughout the empty warehouse. Oh, Anna is around. She's been very helpful, you see. John, you may have won the first round, but we're not finished yet. Anna emerged from behind a stack of crates, nervous yet determined. I apologize, John, but you gave me no choice. I looked between them. Realization is dawning. So, is this your grand plan? Are you going to try to frame me for something? David smiled wider. Oh, it's far better than that, you see, John. You were busy playing the wronged husband, while we too have been busy. We have proof that you have been embezzling from your clients. By the time we're done, you'll be lucky to be out of jail. I laughed with genuine amusement. Is that your play? The evidence was fabricated. You two are really desperate. Anna moved forward, her voice pleading. It does not have to be this way, John. Just simply agree to revise the divorce settlement, give me what I deserve, and everything goes away. I looked at her and saw not the woman I had once loved, but a desperate, pathetic stranger. Do you want to know what you deserve, Anna? I pulled out my phone and pressed a button. The warehouse was suddenly flooded with light as police officers swarmed in from every entrance. David's face was contorted with rage. What did you do? I smiled coldly. Did you really believe I would come here alone? Every word you've spoken has been recorded. Attempted blackmail, conspiracy to commit fraud. I'm sure the police will be eager to add these charges to your growing list. David and Anna were led away in handcuffs, while the police car drove away. The days following David and Anna's arrest were a blur of police reports and legal consultations. I had successfully turned the tables on their plan, but I knew better than to let my guard down. When pushed to their limits, people like David and Anna could do anything. My suspicions were confirmed when Rebecca summoned me to her office early one morning. John, we have a problem, she explained. Her normally calm demeanor was rattled. Our police sources just informed me that David has been released on bail. I felt a shiver go down my spine. How is that possible, given the charges against him? Rebecca shook her head, her voice conveying frustration. He still has some influential friends, but that isn't the worst of it. Apparently, he was overheard making very specific threats towards you. I leaned back in my chair, processing this data. So, what are our next steps? Rebecca's eyes met mine with fierce determination. We go on the offense. We have enough evidence to bury David for good. It's time to make use of it. Rebecca and I spent the next few hours compiling every piece of evidence we had against David. Financial records, witness testimony, and recorded conversations. All of this painted a damning picture of a man who would go to any length to save his skin. As evening fell, I decided to go home. My mind was racing with plans and contingencies. The streets were quiet. The city was settling into its nightly routine. But as I approached my apartment building, I felt uneasy. The door to my apartment was slightly open. My heart was pounding. I pushed it open slowly, ready for anything. The living room was dark, but I could see a figure sitting in my armchair. Hello, John. David's voice broke through the darkness. I think it's time we had a little talk. I turned on the lights, revealing David's haggard face. He appeared to be on edge, desperate, and dangerous. How did you get in here? I demanded, my voice firm despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. David smiled with a cold, humorless expression. You'd be surprised what a little money can buy, but that's not the point right now. What matters is what happens next. I remained standing, maintaining my distance. And what did you have in mind? David leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with malice. It's really simple. You're going to call your lawyer and ask her to drop all charges against me. You're going to sign a statement admitting to fabricating evidence against me, and then you'll disappear. I couldn't help laughing. And why would I do any of this? David smiled wider. Because if you don't, Anna will die. My blood became cold. Despite everything, the thought of Anna in danger still moved me. What did you do, David? He waved his hand dismissively. Anna, for the time being, we are safe. But one call from me, and let's just say she won't be enjoying her time in custody any longer. I took a deep breath, my thoughts racing. You're not telling the truth. You would not risk including murder in your charges. David stood up abruptly. His calm demeanor was cracking. Do you think I care about charges at this point? You have ruined me, John. My reputation, my business, and everything I have. I have nothing more to lose. As David rants, I notice something that causes my heart to skip a beat. A small red dot appeared on his chest. Mark, my former cop friend who is now a private investigator, must have followed me home and is now positioned outside with a sniper rifle. I raised my hands as if to surrender, but it was actually a signal to Mark. Okay, David, you win. I will do whatever you want. Just please, do not hurt Anna. David's face lit up with triumph. I knew you would see reason, John. Now, shall we make that call to your lawyer? When David reached for his phone, I made my move. I lunged forward and tackled him to the ground, just as a shot rang out, shattering the window behind David. We grappled on the floor. David's desperation gave him strength, but years of construction work in my youth had made me stronger than I appeared. I was able to pin David down just as the police, alerted by the gunshot, burst through the door. As the officer handcuffed David, I sat back and breathed deeply. It was over, really truly over. The full extent of David's desperation became clear over the next few days. There was no real threat to Anna. She had been safely detained the entire time. David had been deceptive, making one last desperate attempt to save himself. The trial was quick and decisive, despite the mountain of evidence against them both. David and Anna were sentenced to significant prison time. As I watched them being led away, I felt immense relief that this chapter in my life was finally over. Rebecca caught up with me just as I was leaving the courthouse for the last time. John, she spoke in a gentle tone. I know it's been a long, hard road, but it's finally over. You won. I nodded and managed a small smile. Yes, I suppose I did. As we descended the stairs, I felt lighter than I had in months. The future stretched out ahead of me, full of opportunities. I'd survived the storm and was prepared for whatever came next. As I stood outside the newly completed Miller Architectural Center, the warm spring sun shone on my face. The crowd had gathered for the grand opening. I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This structure, which was my vision come true, served as a testament to my fortitude and determination. A reporter called out, "Mr. Miller," as he pushed through the crowd. How does it feel to finally have your dream project realized, especially after everything you've been through? I smiled, memories from the previous year flooding my mind. It feels incredible. This center symbolizes not only my work, but also the power of perseverance. You can always rebuild after a setback in life. As the reporter jotted down my words, I noticed a familiar face in the crowd. Emma, my assistant turned friend, looked at me with unmistakable pride. Our eyes locked, and I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the spring sun. Emma approached me after the ribbon-cutting ceremony. "Congratulations, John," she said softly. "You earned this moment." I took her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "I could not have done it without you, Emma. You supported me through the worst of it." She flushed slightly, her eyes sparkled. "So someone had to keep you in line." We laughed together, and I was struck by how natural it felt to be with Emma. There was no pretense or games, just a genuine connection. "Join me for dinner tonight," I inquired, surprised by my own willingness to celebrate. Emma's smile widened. "I would love to." My phone buzzed as the crowd dispersed. It was a message from Rebecca. "Turn on the news. You'll want to see this." Curious, I took out my tablet, and quickly opened a new stream. The headline made my breath catch. Disgraced businessman David Thompson faces additional charges in prison scandal. In an unexpected twist, the reporter's voice filled the air. David Thompson, who has already served time for fraud and attempted blackmail, is now facing additional charges. Thompson allegedly attempted to bribe prison officials and plan an escape. This latest development is likely to extend his sentence by several years. I turned off the stream and shook my head. Even behind bars, David could not help but dig deeper. "Is everything okay?" Emma asked, concern evident in her voice. I nodded, satisfaction washing over me. "Yeah, everything is fine. Just some old ghosts finally being laid to rest." As we walked away from the building, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal, the pain, the fights, they had all shaped me and made me stronger, but they didn't define me. "You know," I said to me as we reached my car a year ago, "I thought my life was over. I'd lost everything that mattered to me." Emma looked at me, her gaze understanding, and now I smiled, truly smiled, for what felt like the first time in ages. Now I realize I've gained so much more than I ever lost. I've got my integrity, my career, and I paused, meeting her eyes, the promise of something new and beautiful. Emma's hand found mine. Her touch sent a rush of excitement through me, signaling the start of something new. She spoke softly to new beginnings, and I echoed, feeling for the first time in a long while genuinely excited about the future. We drove away from the Miller Architectural Center, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude, not for the difficulties I had encountered, but for the strength I had discovered within myself to overcome them. The road had not been easy, but it had brought me to this point, to new possibilities. Emma's profile, illuminated by the setting sun, gave me a surge of hope. The past was behind me. The future was full of promise, and I was ready to welcome it with open arms and an open heart. Life had given me a second chance, and I was determined to take advantage of it. After all, the best revenge is not simply living well, it's thriving, expanding, and discovering happiness in unexpected places. I smiled to myself. This was not an ending, it was a new beginning, and I was excited to see where it would lead.